Welcome to What's Next with Eric Wood, where we will prepare you to make your what's next in life your best yet. Our next guest is Heather Monahan, and Heather is a two-time best-selling author, top 50 keynote speaker in the world in 2022, podcast host of Creating Confidence, and TEDx speaker. Heather is the author of the books Overcome Your Villains and Confidence Creator. If you're one of the hundreds of thousands of people that follow Heather already, then you know you're in for a treat today. And if you're not, then I can't wait for you to hear Heather on this podcast. And her words are surely going to impact you today. If you haven't already, please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you tune in weekly. And also, if you haven't already, please go to Amazon and order my book, Tackle What's Next. And the link to that is in the show notes. Thanks and enjoy. Heather, welcome to the podcast.
Eric, thanks for having me. And I love how you ask for what you want. Rate and review the show, buy the book. I love that you go out there and do that. It's impressive.
Yeah, and I used to do it at the end, and I just feel like I know when I listen to podcasts, like as soon as the content ends, like I'm either on to the next one or get out of my car or stop the workout, whatever, stop it when I'm doing my workout. So I figured I'd just throw it out there at the beginning, get it over with.
Let's mix it up, people. It's a great book.
Yep, absolutely. Appreciate that. All right, so you are the perfect guest for this show because this show was created as I figured out what was next for me in my big pivot in life. And your platform that you've created, which has vaulted you to top 50 speaker in the world now, focuses on pivoting. And so that being said, talk about your career journey that led you to that big pivot point in your career.
Oh my gosh, you make it sound like it was such a beautiful pivot point. It was not. It was a definite hard one, but actually yours was tough too. So, I had grown up poor in Worcester, Massachusetts, which most people probably have not heard of. And I just focused on making money. That was my thing, right? When you come from scarcity, all you want is that never-ending supply of wealth. So I bartended in college, and I remember all the people with the nice cars. I would ask them, what do you do for a living? And they were all in sales. So I thought, okay, this is my strategy. I'm getting into sales right away. Luckily, I was good at it. I just outworked everybody, and I became a top seller at the Gallo Winery in Massachusetts my first year out of college. And then I was sexually harassed. So I quit that job because I was not very confident at the time at all. And I went to an event and started chatting up different people. I met someone who owned a radio station, went to work for him immediately after that, became his top seller my first year. And then my boyfriend cheated on me at the time. I went to work like a hot mess. And my boss said, what happened to my all-star? What's going on with you? And I said, I'm devastated. My boyfriend cheated on me. He said, well, if you want to make a lot of money, hop on a plane with me. Don't ask me where we're going. I'm going to drop you off somewhere. You're going to be my partner, and I'm going to make you a very wealthy young lady. Wow. And all I thought to myself was, okay, if I don't have to run into this guy again, sign me up. Let's go. So he dropped me off in Saginaw, Michigan. I was 24 years old. I became his equity partner. We bought a $25 million company. I ran that with the focus and goal of accelerating revenues as quickly as possible. And I sold that company in under 3 years for $55 million, netting our team $30 million. Not me, by the way. I took a very small percentage of that. But I learned I had a lot of value in business and accelerating revenue. I went from there to a publicly traded company and pitched myself for a job that didn't exist, became VP of sales, was promoted 3 times, became chief revenue officer, was named one of the most influential women in radio. And 3 weeks later, I was fired.
Wow. And you were fired from a villain or by a villain. And so there's the book, Overcome Your Villain. So I'll give a little plug there for one of your 2 best-selling books. But just backing up quickly, it's funny you say you didn't come from money, neither did I. So on the west side of Cincinnati, I wish someone would have told me that the best way to make money is get in sales. I tell people that now. I said, if you don't inherit money, if you're not going to be a professional athlete, an entertainer, whatever it may be, the number one way for a young person to generate money is sales. Everyone thinks it's, I'm going to be a doctor, a lawyer, I'm going to get into one of those 2 industries, an engineer, and then I'm going to make money. Well, you're making money for someone else at that point. In sales, you're working on commission, you're being rewarded for your time, and then you can build something where you can start your own. Heck, nowadays, go join a trade, learn it, and then start your own business based off the trade. You learn as you go, but from the west side of Cincinnati, that's what I thought as well. Luckily, I played football and it worked out a lot better that way. But I remember Bobby Petrino, my freshman year, who was my coach at the University of Louisville, comes in the weight room one day, and Bobby was the type of coach that you tried to avoid when he came around. He was very hard nosed, and he walks in. It's one of my first workouts at the University of Louisville. He said, and I was accepted into their engineering school, which was a pretty big deal. He said, "Eric, do you want to be an engineer or a football player?" I said, "A football player." And he said, and granted, I got one scholarship offer to college. I said, "A football player." And he said, "Okay, go change your major." And so I changed it to a like pre-law major, because then maybe I could be a lawyer one day if football didn't work out. It's just funny how your perspective on life changes as you get older, and really when you get in tuned on like how you truly make money in life. But little sidestep there, but back to your story. So you get fired by the owner of the company's daughter, who's going to be taking over, who, you know, doesn't make a lot of sense at the time. And these big life changes often don't make sense, but you had a greater perspective. And let's start this way. What were your first steps after that happened, once you kind of got yourself back off the mat?
Oh gosh, I had been at that company at that point in time for 14 years, I think it was at that point. So I wasn't expecting to get fired, right? I was a single mother. I was devastated. I'll never forget leaving. And I'm just an overachiever. I'm not the kind of person that gets fired, right? That had never
Mm,
happened in my life. I couldn't even fathom it. And so it was funny. Well, it's funny now, 5 years later. It wasn't funny that day. I remember walking out of her office saying, "I've lost everything. I have nothing." I really believed that for a moment. And I know for people listening right now, we have, when it hits the fan, sometimes you can't think clearly, you can't get perspective. But one of the things I had to do immediately was distill my belief from this massive belief that I've lost everything to, wait a minute, what did I really lose? Like, what factual basis is here? I didn't lose my health. I didn't lose my family. I didn't lose my business acumen. I didn't lose, my unique skill set and my network. I lost a paycheck. So that was the first thing I had to do, was really break it down to fact. What did I lose? And I lost a paycheck, but I had earned paychecks at various places throughout my career. So I felt a little bit better once I made that realization and took that pressure off myself. The next thing I did was I took action immediately, and I posted on social media, "I've just been fired. And if I've ever done anything to help you, I need to hear from you right now." And here's what's weird, Eric, is that in my industry in media and the media business, you have to sign a non-compete when you go to work for a large, marquee brand. And so I
right.
had a non-compete for 18 months. So even though I was fired, I had to leave the industry that I had expertise in. I could not stay in the media business. I could not, be a sales leader anywhere unless I was willing to start over as a rookie in a completely different industry that I had no business experience in. So I didn't know what to do. So I just put that post up in hopes that maybe it would open a door, to somebody else. And so many people that loved me reached out and said, "Oh my gosh, take that post down. You look really pathetic. You're saying you got fired." And I remember thinking, okay, am I pathetic? And I thought, I didn't steal anything. I didn't hurt anybody. I didn't do
Right.
anything wrong. I just showed up as me, and this lady that doesn't like me, right? That's more about her than it is about me. So I said, no, even though I appreciate everyone's opinions trying to protect me, I'm leaving the post up. And thank goodness I did. That post went viral, and it landed me on the Elvis Duran show. And halfway through that interview, Elvis Duran is a large radio host here in New York. And so one of the things that did was, halfway through the interview, he looked at me with such conviction and confidence and said, "Well, Heather, obviously you're writing a book." But I wasn't writing a book. I had never, I wasn't an English lit major in college. I was a psych major, and I had never thought of writing a book. But because he had such a belief and conviction about me doing it, I said, "You know what? I am." And that completely changed the trajectory of my business and my life that day.
Wow. That's great. And it's often someone speaking words into you. And I always say words are so incredibly powerful, and you never know the words you're going to speak into someone, especially a young person, that will give them the confidence later in life to succeed on super high levels. I can think back to countless athletes that have been on the show. One of the best examples was Chad Michael Murray. He was talking about laying in a hospital bed when he had a serious illness early on. He was 16-ish years old, and the nurse asked him what he wanted to be, and he said, I want to be an actor one day. And she said, well, you look like a model, so why don't you give it a shot? And up until that point, it was a pipe dream for him. He was acting on home videos with all of his brothers. He was the youngest of many brothers, and he was just goofing around. Well, at that point, he now thought, I can be an actor. And then he goes on to star on One Tree Hill, and he's still acting to this day. And so it's often little words like that are so incredibly powerful. And I love that allowed you and that propelled you into what you're doing now. And then you become a two-time best-selling author. I know from just releasing a book, that is not a small feat. It's a huge project, especially if you're coming from a person that, if you're coming where you don't already have the platform, like with the platform you have now, putting out a best-selling book would not be nearly as difficult as I'm sure it was then. What was that writing process like when you're writing your first book? Was there imposter syndrome? Like what's going through your head during that time?
Oh my gosh, that it's funny. My first book I self-published. My second book I did with HarperCollins Leadership, and they're so incredibly different. The experiences are incredibly different. The books are different. It was easier self-publishing as a rookie author, believe it or not, because I just only checked in with me, right? Like, let me consult with myself here. Okay, I feel like this is good. Okay, I'm going to do it, right? And I always believe speed to market is critical. Move fast, break things. Mistakes are part of, the game. So for me, I wrote and self-published that book in 5 months, which was
Wow.
pretty fast. But of course, I invested in myself, right? I hired an editor, someone who had written 19 books. So I had someone that was helping me advance rapidly and quickly. And it was a team of one. So I didn't have this process of or people slowing me down. My second book took almost 2 years to do because there were so many people on the HarperCollins team that wanted to check things and wanted to consult and whatnot. So I mean, there's pros and cons to both. But I'm really proud of that first book because I didn't have any experience. I didn't know I remember Googling, can anybody write is it even legal? And I'll never forget seeing, so many jackballs had written books and thinking, oh, if those people can write a book, I definitely can, right? Like, so thank you to all these different people that had written books. And the craziest thing is the first week that book came out, it trumped Donald Trump for #1 on the business biography list. And yes, I saved a screenshot for that one. And he happened to be the president at the time. So
Wow.
that became my biggest marketing tool. And it really allowed for a launch point for that first book. And I'm incredibly proud of it. There's 3 mistakes in it. And I get them pointed out to me all the time. I wrong aged my child once in one of the chapters. I mean, there's a couple of mistakes. And I'm so incredibly proud to have a book out in the world that helps so many people, that has 3 mistakes, versus being that person on your deathbed one day saying, I always had this book in me that I could have shared, and I could never get it perfect. So, my second book doesn't have any mistakes. It took a lot longer, but I'm probably most proud of that first one, and just having that courage to move forward with blind faith and just give it a shot. And I'm so grateful I did.
Yeah, I'm grateful you did too, and it's impacted so many people. I feel a little better that you said your second book took 2 years because mine took about 18 months, but I worked with Wiley and Sons on it,
Mhm.
and they're used to working with John Gordon and Ed Milet and these other guys, and so they had a lot of opinions for me, a lot of pointers, but it still is a much longer process when you're working with a big time publishing company. I'm blessed to work with them, blessed for the introduction from those individuals to that publishing company, but it becomes a much longer process. And you talk about the editing. When you released a book, did you ever have that feeling like that it kind of sucks right before you release it? And And I say that just because, and this has kind of been my experience, once you've edited 5 times, like you never read a book 5 times back to back to back to back to back. Otherwise, you probably would think it stinks. I did that with my own, and then I'm releasing it like, oh man, I hope this is any good. And I'm getting great feedback right now, and I appreciate everyone that's giving me that feedback. But did you ever have that feeling?
Of course, everybody, if anyone says they don't, John Gordon, who's a good friend of mine, feels that same way. We all do, right? There is nobody out there that says, "Oh, I nailed this. It's perfect. I'm so, I know this is fan." They're full of it. If they act that way or pretend, everyone has self-doubt. Because if you truly put your heart in something, Beyonce gets up on stage and gets nervous, right? After, and she's the most incredible female artist out there. No matter who you are, if you care, of course you're going to be nervous because you want to impact people. You want to do good. You want to bring goodness forward. And in your concern is, gosh, I hope I, conveyed it in the right way. I hope it lands with people. And you don't really know until it's out there. It truly is like giving birth, like this idea that you're putting a creation out into the world and you're just praying it's received well.
All right, good. I'm so glad you said that. I appreciate that. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. So, confidence is the number one indicator for success in life, and we talk all the time on this podcast. Success does not just mean monetary things. Success is a well-rounded, all buckets of life success. And so, that being said, I've heard you say confidence is the one thing that changes everything. And now let's go on to confidence a little bit. What does confidence, what does having confidence mean to you?
Oh my gosh, it means everything. And it's so funny because I'll watch different interviews on TV or read different things. I'm a constant learner. And I always see that theme of confidence coming up, no matter whether you're talking about writing a book or going on TV as a guest or playing professional sports. Oh my gosh, Eric, the amount of DMs I've gotten from NBA players who read my first book because of the issue with confidence from the free throw line or, confidence can ebb and flow. You can be super confident at the gym when you work out, but in your personal relationships, feel like you have no confidence. You can be really confident as a mother, but lose it the minute you walk into the office, right? So for everyone, when you get real with yourself about where your confidence is on the scale in different facets of your life, and also the fact that it's not static, it's going to change, right? People go through a divorce, their confidence dips, right? These changes, people go into a pandemic, you lose your confidence. So there's all these different moments that it just makes so much sense to me. And I wish schools would embrace this, that we train people and teach people, hang on, this is what happens when you lose your confidence. This is how you build it back up. And you're going to need to learn this process time and time again, because in all different areas of your life, you're going to need to rebuild it if you ever really want to reach your potential and live your fullest life.
That's excellent. All right, so I don't want you to give away all the secret sauce. I want people to go out and read the book Confidence Creator, but give the listeners just a few things maybe. How does one create confidence in their life so they can show up in any room, any situation, or most situations, and have a confidence about them that they are going to succeed in these situations?
Okay, so I have a lot of different tips and tricks in the book. First of all, you need to set an intention, right? So if for me getting fired, I knew my confidence was gone. The biggest mistake I had made up until that point was I had put the power of my confidence in things external from me. That's an epic fail. The power of my confidence was in my paycheck, my title, my team, how I appeared on the outside, right? That is never going to endure, but I just didn't think it through at the time. So when I did get fired, I remember setting the intention. I am going to hit a 10 on my confidence scale. I know what that looks like. Even if I don't know what it looks like for me, I see other people that that they really appear truly confident to me. I want to embrace that. I want to channel that. And I'm going to achieve that. I gave myself a timeline the same way you would like when you went on, you had a goal to lose weight, right? Like you give yourself a timeline, you map out a plan. It's an action plan. You check in and weigh yourself. You check in with your confidence weekly. And I write all of these things down on a 30-day plan. So it's attainable, tangible, and I track my progress. And a big part of that is really about stepping into fear, starting off small and building momentum so you can have some wins, recognize and appreciate your wins, and allow that to build you some momentum so that you can start taking larger leaps. And the more comfortable you feel with that, or the more it feels a bit more normal, the more you're going to keep doing it and the more you're going to be able to accelerate quickly. For me in corporate America, I was so conditioned to one environment. I'd been there for over 20 years, that this was what I thought was a well-lit arena. I felt confident there because I had been there. I had competency, right? The more you show up and do one thing, it was like you in football. Oh yeah, I know this lane. I got this. Now you're pivoting to an author lane. I don't have any competence here, right? So now we're back down low on the confidence scale, but then we have to pump the brakes and say, wait a minute, but I wasn't always confident, on a football field. Let's go back to those first few days. How did I do it? I trained, I practiced, I surrounded myself with people that stretched me, encouraged me, that gave me some tips and tricks. All of these things are the same. We just have to have the intention and relate it back to this concept of confidence instead of just accelerating it, in one business or another.
That's so good. And I often feel that way in this next chapter of life for me, which is speaking and being on broadcast or podcast. And I always felt like as a player, the more prepared I was, there's so many things that can go wrong on a football field, and you're never going to play a perfect game. We would always joke, like, if you felt you played really good, that next day on film, you're going to be broken down based upon how you feel about yourself. And you felt like you played terrible, you'll probably be built back up. It's just never going to be perfect, but you can live with the results if you're ultimately prepared. If you did everything you possibly could do, if you could control everything you could control on the front end, then you can step in with confidence and live with the results. And that's what I've had to take into this next chapter of life. I've prepared super hard for this podcast, and I know it's going to go well because we're featuring you and you're going to bring it and it's going to be great. But each and every episode, I'm very prepared coming in, and that gives me the confidence to step in front of the mic with someone like yourself that has the platform you do, or all the guests that give me butterflies right before the Zoom screen pops up, or when we do them in person. It's like being prepared in anything in life, just like the football field. Take that same approach to it and then just live with the results. You can't control everything. And you talk about NBA players. I love that they're reaching out to you, and people often look at celebrities, athletes, these high performers, and think, man, they never have breaks in their confidence. I'm sure every time Steph Curry gets behind the three-point line, he knows it's going in. Well, he assumes it will because he's shot hundreds of thousands of three-pointers, but he's still doing things to train his confidence each and every day. And I love that. I've listened to you speak many times, and I love when you go through all your different tips and tricks for creating confidence. And I've implemented a lot of them in my life as well. The one I love is about having a playlist or certain songs that bring you in the moment. And I'll tell you this real quick before I let you speak on it. So early in my career, I would be like, man, I got to be in this super intense rage mode before the game, and to be like Eminem and different hip hop artists I like, or maybe Kid Rock and whatever that may be. Towards the end of my career, it was like country songs from like maybe concerts we went to the previous summer that would like get me in like just like take me to a place that was like real peaceful, and like I'm going into the game like fairly calm, like knowing that my emotions and my adrenaline are going to get going. I don't need to do it with music. So talk a little bit about the playlists that you talk about in creating confidence in stepping into a situation.
Oh my gosh. So as I mentioned, I was an equity partner in Saginaw, Michigan. When you just mentioned Eminem and Kid Rock, I was like, oh, I am so your girl. Okay. So, well, it's funny. I happen to have been a psychology major in college. One of the things that you study in psychology is about priming the mind and Pavlov's law. And for anyone who doesn't or hasn't heard this scientific approach, basically what scientists did would they would ring a bell, dogs would come, and they would feed them. And what they were showing is that you can prime someone's mind so much so that you can get the body to react to a noise without whatever the tool is going to be. In this instance, it was food. They would ring the bell, they would feed the dog. Ring the bell, feed the dog. Suddenly they would ring the bell, the dogs would salivate. There wasn't food there any longer. It didn't matter. What this means is, and I'm leveraging this information and research to go to work for me so that I'm able to take big stages when I'm really scared. And the food for me is really, instead of ringing a bell, I'm playing a playlist that I only play when I'm about to take a massive stage, when I'm about to do something really scary. And that can be for you, giving a speech at a PTA meeting. It can be anything, whatever is big for you. curate a playlist that's meaningful and speaks to you. It doesn't matter what it is. It's important that it speaks to you, and only start using it and training for it when you're going to visualize what you're about to do. Visualization works. Professional athletes use this all the time. Again, back to psychology, but prime your mind for what you're about to take on, and how you're going to do really well. A good example of that for me is I was interviewing Sarah Blakely live on stage in front of thousands of people at the end of 2019. And this was one of my bigger public appearances as a keynote speaker initially. And I was really nervous, right? I mean, she's a billionaire. She's got the whitest teeth in the world. You know, she invented Spanx. And here I am interviewing her. And I was so nervous I was going to make a mistake. So what I did was I started priming myself and preparing for it. I would visualize. I watched so much footage of her. Like you're saying, I practiced, right? I learned everything I could and consumed everything I could about this woman. But then I would close my eyes with that picture of her in my mind and see myself smiling at her, see her smiling at me. And then I would hit my playlist and I would start visualizing while I'm listening to the playlist. It's going amazing. And I'm focusing on everyone going crazy. You know, the crowd goes wild. Well, wouldn't you know, I fly to Boston, and we were doing it at the Wang Theater in Boston. I walk in and I see her. It's the day of. And I run over to hug her because I'm a hugger and she's not a hugger. And I hadn't seen that in the visualization, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, wait. So now I got nervous again. Here I was, I had primed myself and something unexpected happened, right? Not that that's bad. She's not a hugger, no big deal. But because it flooded me with nerves again, that things weren't going the way that I had visualized, I ran to my green room. I popped in my AirPods and I hit my playlist. And I stayed in there until they knocked on the door and it was time to go on stage. And I just kept playing that list over and over again. I would not come out because I knew I had to get back into that. I had to prime my mind that I'm about to go kill it. And I know it's going to happen regardless of if there was a misstep out there. And I took that stage, and I will tell you, we killed it. The crowd went wild, and there was a million problems that occurred. It didn't go flawlessly, but I truly accredit any of those instances where I'm super nervous or scared or things start going wrong. I just go back to the same thing with my TEDx talk. It was the same exact thing. I choked in the warm up that morning and I blanked. I couldn't think of my 10-minute talk that I had practiced for months, and that's never happened in my life. And after I did that, immediately I surrounded myself with people that cheer me on and stretch me to grow, that would remind me of my accomplishments. I hit my playlist and I shut everything else out in the world until I took that stage. And as soon as I took the stage, you know, I killed it. So I truly encourage everybody this is psychology at its finest. Visualization and priming your mind works.
So good. And I've listened to your TED Talk twice, and it's excellent. And you would never know that. And so I'm so glad that you went back and did your priming exercise, because I want you to talk on this for a second, but a TED Talk is one of those things where it's one of the only times where you have a set amount of time. So you want to memorize the talk or memorize most of it. And then it's just going to live on. Like, there's no redo. Like, you have a speaker before you and after. You have a set amount of time, if I understand correctly, and it'll live on forever. So you can't blow it. What was that experience like?
Awful. That was by far the scary. And I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I see it the same way you do, right? Like, it's going to live on in eternity. So if it's good, amazing. If it's awful, ooh, epic fail. Too bad you didn't blow another speech, right? Because this was not the one to blow. So you have that additional pressure. Some of the things that I did differently to prep for that one, I'm a visual learner. And if you are a visual learner, I highly recommend this. Number one, I went to the venue a few weeks ahead of time and again, walked myself around so I could feel what it was going to feel like that day. I visualized it. I used my playlist. Then I came back to my apartment and I put these big boards up like a crazy person. It drove my son nuts with the power moments of my talk that I wanted to nail. You know, when you want to make a big point, you want to slow down and pull all that power in. And so I had like 6 power moments and I had them all over my wall. So no matter during the day, I was seeing the words all the time to remind me, this is your power moment. This is your power moment. So, I mean, I didn't, like you said, I didn't want to memorize, but you only have 10 minutes and you can't miss your mark. So I was trying to keep it fluid, but it wasn't like a normal talk that you can just ad lib. So, and you're confined to a circle, which I don't like being confined. I don't like being told I can only, it kind of goes against my grain. So I, of course, was nervous. And that morning when I just wasn't prepared and I blanked on it, it was terrifying to me because I hadn't planned for it. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I blew it this morning, there's a good chance I could blow it this afternoon. I don't know that I'm going to be okay. I don't know that this is going to come off. And, luckily, I believe in a greater power beyond me and the amount of time and effort I put in. Something kicked in inside me that just said, I closed my eyes, right? I was the first speaker that day, and I closed my eyes behind stage when they called my name. And I said, if you don't walk out there, you're never going to forgive yourself. If you go out there and blow it, I'm going to be so proud of you. And then I don't remember the next 60 seconds. And I kind of came to like 40 seconds into the talk, and you can see me kind of snap up a little bit. Something else was propelling me through that initial minute. And then once I realized I had the words were coming out, then I was like, all right, I'm here, let's go.
The reason I watched it twice is because I watched it, I heard you speak and tell that story about it clicking, and I had to go back and try and
And
watch for that
see,
moment. I never noticed it the first time. You wouldn't be able to notice it without understanding the context of it, but I did notice it the second time only because I had heard you talk about it. That's such a good story. And for all those out there, whether you're a dentist, whether you're an athlete, whether you're in sales, you get a bad night's sleep, your kid wakes up in the middle of the night, something's going to happen. Those priming exercises can be so valuable for getting you back in the moment and getting back your confidence, which is going to be your number one indicator for success in that moment. I love how you say that. All right. So one thing that stops people from chasing their dreams is their worry about what other people think about them. How do you recommend to people to get over their FOPO, their fear of other people's opinions?
I've never heard that FOPO. Okay, so you know what's so funny? When I got fired and people heard that I immediately wasn't going to take a CRO job, a sales leadership job somewhere, they would call me and say, are you crazy? You're good at that. This is what your career is built on. You don't want to step out and take a chance to fail at something. And of course that stuff impact. When I would hear that, you start, especially if you're in a low moment in life, you start second guess. I wasn't on top of the world. I'm failing in many ways, right? I'm thinking, I don't even know how I'm going to make money. So you start questioning everything. But one thing I've learned, through 48 years of life experience is that there is one voice and opinion that matters, and it is your own.
Hmm.
And the sooner you can start journaling so you can get real with what that voice is and dialing it up and amplifying it and start acting on it, the louder it will get. There was a period in my life I would ask everyone outside me, what do you think I should do about that? Should I wear that? Should I date that guy? What The more you look outwards for your validation, the less you're going to have that inner voice speaking to you. So you got to aggressively pursue it, and you can get it back, because mine is so loud now that I immediately know what I need to do without checking with anybody else. But it's work, right? It's conscious work. And you have to get out of the habit of reaching outside of you to ask for that direction and start checking in with you. I remember when I was a little kid, I had loved acting when I was very young, and, doing plays at school or whatever. And someone said to me one day when I was 10, well, like 0.1% of the world can make it in that business. You should pursue something else. And I remember thinking, oh, thanks for that advice. Appreciate it. Now, the irony is I find myself on stages now in front of thousands of people. Yes, I'm speaking about business and sales, but you know what? It's similar in some ways. It's almost like things had to come full circle for me to get back to the things that I really had a gift in, that I knew I had a calling for, but because I allowed other people to talk me out of it, I had to go a very, very long, harder road to get back to what I knew was my calling. So don't waste your time. Don't waste your God-given abilities. Act on that one voice that's within you and start pursuing it, no matter how small. And the more you amplify you, the more you're going to turn down everybody else.
Man, that is so good. That is so good. I love that you talked about you wanted to be in movies or an actress when you're older. So many professional athletes that I talked to, they were often laughed at when they were a kid, when the teachers say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Okay, I want to be a professional football player. And they'd say, well, what else? Because that's not going to work out. And I understand that there's many boys and girls out there that say, I want to be a professional athlete and ultimately don't. but don't get talked out of it too early. Don't get talked out of it when you're a kid and you're dreaming and you have no idea what God's plans are going to be for your life. Because I mean, if you were looking at me and I was saying my junior year of high school that I want to be a professional athlete and I'm not even starting on our varsity football team, you would have looked like it would have seemed like you were right. Well, God had different plans and I worked my tail off and it all worked out. But it's amazing how often you could be talked out of that because you're afraid of what other people are going to think. If what happens if I start training like crazy and I just go all in, let's just see what happens. And you never know what's going to happen in those situations. And talk about being on stages now. You're now a top 50 speaker in the world. One, congratulations on that. That is absolutely incredible. It puts you in the company of so many people that I know me and you both look up to and have looked up to for years. And now you're in that company that's so special. What suggestions do you have for someone out there that wants to take the next step in their public speaking? And I understand you're a keynote speaker and a motivational speaker, but there's so many people that are listening in. They run a board meeting each week, or they lead a company and they have to talk in front of everybody. Public speaking gives so many people fears. What advice do you have to improve your public speaking skills?
Oh my gosh, anyone can improve. It's like anything, right? You just have to, first of all, so many people say, I'm nervous, I'm nervous. Stop saying that, right? You're
Right.
speaking a truth into existence. Start saying, I'm excited. There is a very fine line between being afraid and being excited. And I do this to myself when I'm driving to an event, when I'm on a plane. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I can't wait. And then I make it all about the other people. So often we make it about ourselves. What if I make a mistake? What if I let everyone down? No. What if I inspire one person? What if I reach one person with this message? What if at this board meeting today, I'm able to transcend standing here and impact someone so they have a why to show up tomorrow to work, right? Like, make it about the audience and maybe what you can impact, how you can impact them or how they can benefit from it, and stop making it about you. And some of that pressure comes off. Another thing is, I love to use humor, right? So I'm sure everybody's so excited to be here for this talk today on Friday at 4 o'clock, right? Like, be whoever you are. If you are a funny person, bring that personality and humor in. And I have a lot of people say to me, well, I'm covering dull numbers. I'm a CFO and I have to cover spreadsheets. Okay, I get it. But you can still bring some lightheartedness to it. You can tell a personal story to engage your audience. The majority of audience is disengaged. They're texting, they're thinking about what they're having for dinner or what's going on in their personal life or what they have to do for work tomorrow. The whole key is to get them to hear you and to engage with you, right? So I always lead everything with a personal story because that's how you get people to lean in. People want your vulnerability. They want to know you're normal. They want to be able to relate and connect with you. And so, sharing some type of a story with them, stories sell, facts tell. And yes, you may have to have facts in your speech, and that's fine, but pull them in first with the story and get them advocating so they stay with you on that journey and don't just stick to numbers the whole entire time. Go through some slides and then pause for a minute and say, does this remind anybody else of 0809 recession? Who out there? Ask for, I want to see some arms up from people. Where are my people at out here that feel this? Start engaging with people. And sometimes if I don't know a situation I'm walking into, I put plants in the audience, right? If I've got some really dull material I'm covering and I know some people, I'm texting them ahead of time. I'm going to say, listen, I'm going to start asking some questions. If no one's responding, I'm calling on you, bro. So be ready. And you could say this, or you could say this. Put some plants in the audience. The minute people start engaging with you, the energy level rises, right? It's going to rise to wherever you are. So you want to be bringing the heat. You want to get people fired up, responding in the audience. And then like a domino effect, it will start lighting the entire audience up.
Yep, that's so good. Be yourself, focus on the audience. My opinions or my viewpoints on public speaking changed when I started getting very excited about my message and how it could impact people or how it could bring value. And I would conduct my speech. I would craft my speech beforehand or craft my talk beforehand with the bullet points that I'd be really excited. Like, I know that they're going to enjoy this. I know that they're going to get value from this. So when I was super prepared and I knew it was going to bring value, then I'm excited. I'm not nervous. Like, what if I blow this? Well, I'm a former professional football player. They don't expect me to be a polished speaker, and I would start off like, hey, look, In my opinion, I should still be playing professional football. You've probably heard from some of my buddies that are in public speaking. They've probably done a way better job than me. So let's have some fun here today. Similar to you, bring some humor to it, bring some humility. People love humility. People love vulnerability. That's part of the reason your story sells so much, because so many people can put themselves in your shoes. I've been fired. I've been at this career where I need to get out. I've changed jobs. I've lost a loved one, I've lost a relationship, whatever it may be. They can put themselves in your vulnerable situations. If you're only telling your highlights, they're not going to relate too well to you. All right.
No, and to your point about practicing, I was doing a keynote. I was not the headliner. The headliner was Tim Story, and I was speaking before Tim Story. He's spoken on all of Oprah's stages. You know, he's one of the top, ahead of me, top speakers out there. And he and I met after at the end of the event. People were chasing him out of the venue, standing ovation. You know, it was clear why he was the headliner. And we went back to the speaker floor, and he and I were sitting there talking. And I said, Tim, what do I need to do to get to your level? Like, I want to be on Oprah's stage, right? I want to grow, give me some honest, direct feedback. And he said, guess how many hours I prepped for today, Heather? I said, I don't know, an hour? He said, are you kidding me? 6. And when I heard that this man who's been speaking for 20 years longer than I have, who's been on the biggest stages in the world, is preparing longer than I'm preparing, that
Wow.
was a humbling experience, right? So you can be at the top of your game, but the key is to still put that energy, still put that effort, and still push yourself to say, how can I change, evolve? How can I be better? And making sure that you're working hard at it.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I've often heard the same thing about how many hours people are preparing for their talks, pastors that have to speak every single week, and they still put so much effort. And they're speaking in front of the same congregation, and they get better and better and better. It's because they're putting countless hours on the back end, plus they get all that experience too of speaking on stages. That's great stuff. All right, I got a few recurring questions for you, and then we'll get you out of here. What's your favorite book besides your own?
Ooh, besides what I just read recently that I love, and yes, I'm plugging my friend, but John Gordon's book, The Garden.
Hmm.
It's such a simple, simplistic read that's very easy to understand for anyone that is on a journey with faith or struggling with anxiety, or it's such a beautiful book about good in the world. And I just loved it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. What role does your faith play in your life?
Oh my gosh, a huge one, specifically over the past couple of years. I grew up as a child in the Catholic Church. And, for years, that was the only way that I knew church. And, moved to Miami, had my son, got divorced. And then I really questioned faith and God, and grew distant in some regards. And then sent my son to he's always gone, and now he goes to an Episcopalian school, but he's always gone to some type of religious school, because religion is so important. And I felt like I wasn't delivering the message, and I wanted him to learn and be open to learning what is out there and available to him. And wouldn't you know, it was him that came to me a couple of years ago and said, Mom, we've got to strengthen our faith, we need to grow closer to God, I'd like us to find a church. Which led me down the path of finding a church in Miami, and led us, to a Christian church, which I'm obsessed with now, and is literally like the best part of our week every week. It's never a force to make him go or make me go. We're always excited about it. We're excited about the message we get, the music that we're exposed to, the people and community. And I will tell you, I have seen marked changes in my life, doors open, synchronicities, serendipities that have happened in my life now that are so obviously pointed to God. It's incredible.
That's excellent stuff. Yeah, I often remind my kids, because we go to a Christian church as well. As a Catholic growing up, we just sat in the pews with your parents, and you're going to do, like, it's not geared towards children. Like, we have a children's program that they go to. I'm like, you guys don't realize how good you guys have it. And I don't mean to be disrespectful of the Catholic Church. They do so many things well, and it's a form of Christianity. That's not my point in all this. I just have to remind my kids, like, you get to go to the clubhouse and you have fun every week. You make a craft. I'm like, Daddy didn't get to do those things growing up in the Catholic Church.
Far cry.
Yeah. What was your first car?
My first car was a blue Mazda.
Was it new at the time or pretty old?
No, it was old.
I love it. I love asking that question right after I ask people about their faith. It kind of takes them back down a notch. Talking about your faith is often pretty high pressure for some people. So I know you speak for a living, but for others that don't, it can be tough to talk about. Do you have a certain morning routine that sets you up for success?
Are you crazy? I think it's so funny when I see people on social media. This is the morning, have hot tea, meditate for an hour. I'm a single mother. Literally, the alarm goes off. I jump out of bed 100 miles an hour down to get my son. I'm like, get up, let's go. In the shower. I turn the showers on, turn all the lights on, push him in there, get him to school. And then, depending, my day is so different, whether I'm flying, if I'm working from home, if I'm doing podcasts, if I'm in a meeting. So I'm like, get the workout in. That's the next thing. Get the kid to school, get the workout in. Those are like the two things I try to focus on. And then after that, work comes into play. But no beautiful morning routine with lemon and yoga.
Yeah, so that should be freeing for so many out there listening in. And that is a routine. Get your son to school and then get a workout in. That is a routine. And I'm with you. I got down the path of like, okay, what's my perfect morning routine going to be? I'm listening to all these people, and I had Craig Ballantyne on my podcast, and he's like, that's all a waste of time. Knock out your most important task first, and then let the rest of the day kind of plan itself out. Get your workout in after that. He goes, I know you're ingrained to get a workout in. You'll get it in. Get your most important stuff done first. I was like, okay, I like that. Like that speaks to me. Appreciate that. What's
If
your
people need to do what works for them, for sure.
right? No doubt about it. What's your favorite restaurant down in Miami?
Oh my gosh, I just moved. I lived in South Beach for 17 years. I will have to say Smith and Walensky, it's right on the ocean. It faces Star Island. I'm always more about people and atmosphere versus food, like okay, out, whatever, I'll eat whatever. But to be able to sit outside under palm trees, watching cruise lines go by, and it's picturesque. There's rainbows. It's incredible. I just think it's so beautiful.
That is an awesome spot. I got to eat there. We were playing in the Orange Bowl in 2006. That was the first time I went there. It was awesome. And I took it for granted too, because you're not paying for it at the time. You're in college. But now I appreciate it much more now. All right. Last one for me. This is what's next with Eric Wood. What's next for Heather Monahan? What do you have coming down the line for you?
Oh my gosh, so many big things. I was just on Dr. Phil last
All
week.
that. Congrats.
Thank you. Like I have so many there, and this is, praise Jesus, because these opportunities that come to me are coming out of left field. It's not, I always pray for this bigger plan that I want to be able to impact and help more people and heal as many people as possible through the healing that I'm receiving. So I just feel like I never know what that next door is going to be. I've been working on trying to get Reese Witherspoon to make my first book into a movie. I've met with E and Bravo about a TV show. I have so many things I'm working on, Eric. I have no idea which one's going to come to fruition next.
Well, I love it. And I can't wait to see what's next for you. Thank you so much for your time to go from Dr. Phil to what's next with Eric Wood. There's a lot of my listeners would think that's a practical next step, but maybe some outsiders wouldn't. So I can't thank you enough for your time. Thank you for the impact that you've had on me and me following your work, hearing you on podcasts, your own podcast, your books. Thank you very much for being you, Heather.
Well, thank you for coming on my show. And if you haven't checked out Eric's episode on my show, check out Creating Confidence with Heather Monahan episode with Eric Wood. It is so good.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Heather.